The sons of Jacob came and sought the way into the city, and could not find it. And the inhabitants of the city went up to the top of the wall, and saw that the sons of Jacob were seeking an entrance into the city. The inhabitants of the city reproached the sons of Jacob from the top of the wall, and they cursed them. And the sons of Jacob heard the reproaches, and they were greatly incensed. Their anger burned within them. The sons of Jacob were provoked at them, and they all rose and sprang over the ramparts with the force of their strength, and through their might passed the 40 cubits breadth of the ramparts. And when they had passed the ramparts, they stood under the wall of the city, and they found all the gates of the city enclosed with iron doors. The sons of Jacob came near to break open the doors of the gates of the city, and the inhabitants did not let them, for from the top of the wall they were casting stones and arrows on them. And the number of the people that were on the walls was about 400 men. And when the sons of Jacob saw that the men of the city would not let them open the gates of the city, they sprang and ascended the, the top of the wall, and Judah went up first to pass to the east part of the city. And Gad and Asher went up after him to the west corner of the city, and Simeon, Levi to the north, and Dan and Reuben to the south. The men who were on the top of the wall, the inhabitants of the city, seeing that the sons of Jacob were coming up to them, all fled from the wall and descended into the city and concealed themselves in the middle of the city. Issachar and Naphtali had remained under the wall, approached and broke the gates of the city and set ablaze a fire and the gates of the city, that the iron melted. And all the sons of Jacob came into the city. They all had their men. They fought with the inhabitants of the city of Sarton and struck them with the edge of the sword, and no man stood before them. About 200 men fled from the city, and they all went to and hid themselves in a certain tower in the city. Judah pursued them to the tower and broke down the tower, which fell on the men, and they all died. The sons of Jacob went up the road of the roof of that tower, and they looked, and there was another strong and high tower at a distance in the city, and the top of it reached to the heaven. And the sons of Jacob hurried and descended and went with all their men to that tower, and found in it filled with about 300 men, women, and little ones. And the sons of Jacob struck a great smiting among those men in the tower, and they ran away and fled from them. And Simeon and Levi pursued them, when 12 mighty and valiant men came out to them from the place where they had concealed themselves. And those 12 men maintained a strong battle against Simeon and Levi, and Simeon and Levi could not prevail over them. Those valiant men broke the shields of Simeon and Levi, and one of them struck at Levi's head with his sword, when Levi hastily placed his hand to his head, for he was afraid of the sword. The sword struck Levi's hand, and the hand of Levi was nearly cut off. Levi seized the sword of the valiant man in his hand and took it forcefully from the man, and with it he struck at the head of the powerful man, and he severed his head. 11 men approached to fight with Levi, for they saw that one of them was killed. The sons of Jacob fought, but the sons of Jacob could not defeat them, for those men were very powerful. And the sons of Jacob, seeing that they could not win over them, Simeon gave a loud and tremendous shriek, and the 11 powerful men were stunned at the voice of Simeon shrieking. Judah at a distance knew the voice of Simeon shouting, and Naphtali and Judah ran with their shields to Simeon and Levi, and found them fighting with those powerful men, unable to defeat them as their shields were broken. Naphtali saw that the shields of Simeon were broken, and he took 2 shields from his servants and brought them to Simeon and Levi. And Simeon, Levi, and Judah on that day fought all 3 against the 11 mighty men until the time of sunset, but they could not win over them. This was told to Jacob, and he was very grieved. He prayed to the Lord, and he and Naphtali his son went against these mighty men. Jacob approached, drew his bow, and came near to the mighty men, and killed 3 of their men with the bow. The remaining 8 turned back, and then the war waged against them in the front and the rear. They were greatly afraid for their lives and could not stand before the sons of Jacob. They fled from before them. In their flight, they met Dan and Asher coming toward them, and they suddenly fell on them and fought with them and killed 2 of them. Judah and his brothers pursued them and struck the remainder of them and killed them. Also, the sons of Jacob returned and walked through the city, searching if they could find any men. They found about 20 young men in a cave in the city. Gad and Asher struck them all, and Dan and Naphtali lighted on the rest of the men who had fled and escaped from the second tower, and they struck them all. The sons of Jacob struck all the inhabitants of the city of Sartan, but the women and the little ones they left in the city and did not kill them. And all the inhabitants of the city of Sartan were powerful, and one of them who pursued 1,000, and 2 of them would not flee from 10,000 of the rest of men. The sons of Jacob killed all the inhabitants of the city of Sartan with the edge of the sword. No man stood up against them, and they left the women in the city. The sons of Jacob took all the spoils of the city and captured what they desired. And they took flocks and herds and properties from the city. The sons of Jacob did to Sartan and its inhabitants as they had done to Cheshire and its inhabitants, and they turned and went away. When the sons of Jacob went from the city of Sartan, they had gone about 200 cubits when they met the inhabitants of Tapnach coming toward them, for they went out to fight with them because they had smitten the king of Tapnach and all his men. So all that remained in the city of Tapnach came out to fight with the sons of Jacob, and they thought to retake from them the booty and the spoil which they had captured from Cheshire and Sartan. The rest of the men of Tapnach fought with the sons of Jacob in that place, and the sons of Jacob struck them, and they fled before them. They pursued them to the city of Arbelan, and they all fell before the sons of Jacob. The sons of Jacob returned and came to Tapnach to take away the spoil of Tapnach. When they came to Tapnach, they heard that the people of Arbelan had gone out to meet them to save the spoils of their brothers. The sons of Jacob left 10 of their men in Tapnach to plunder the city, and they went out towards the people of Arbelan. The men of Arbelan went out with their wives to fight with the sons of Jacob, for their wives were experienced in battle. They went out about 400 men and women, and all the sons of Jacob shouted with a loud voice. They all ran toward the inhabitants of Arbelan with a great and tremendous voice. The inhabitants of Arbelan heard the noise of the shouting of the sons of Jacob, and their roaring like the noise of lions, and like the roaring of the sea and its waves. And fear and terror possessed their hearts on account of the sons of Jacob. They were terribly afraid of them, and they retreated and fled before them into the city. The sons of Jacob pursued them to the gate of the city, and they came on them in the city. And the sons of Jacob fought with them in the city, and all their women were engaged in slinging against the sons of Jacob. The combat was very severe among them all that day till evening. And the sons of Jacob could not prevail over them. The sons of Jacob had almost perished in that battle. The sons of Jacob cried to the Lord and greatly gained their strength toward the evening. The sons of Jacob struck all the inhabitants of Arbelan, and by the cry, by the edge of the sword, men, women, and little ones. Sorry about that. Also, the remainder of people who had fled from Sartan, the sons of Jacob struck them in Arbelan, and the sons of Jacob did to Arbelan and Tapnach as they had done to Sheshar and Sartan. When the women saw that all the men were dead, they went out on the roofs of the city and struck the sons of Jacob by showering them with stones like rain. And the sons of Jacob hurried and came into the city and seized all the women and struck them with the edge of the sword. The sons of Jacob captured all the spoil and the booty, the flocks, the herds, and the cattle. And the sons of Jacob did to Machnamah as they had done to Tapnach, to Cheshire, and to Shiloh, and they turned from there and went away. On the fifth day, the sons of Jacob heard that the people of Gaash had gathered against them to battle, because they had slain their kings and their captains. For there had been 14 captains in the city of Gaash, and the sons of Jacob had slain them all in the first battle. And the sons of Jacob that day put on their weapons of war, and they marched to battle against the inhabitants of Gaash. In Gaash there was a strong and mighty people of the Amorites. Gaash was the strongest and best fortified city of all the cities of the Amorites, and it had 3 walls. The sons of Jacob came to Gaash, and they found the gates of the city locked, and about 500 men standing at the top of the outermost wall. A people numerous as the sand on the seashore were in ambush for the sons of Jacob from outside the city at the rear. And the sons of Jacob approached to open the gates of the city. While they were drawing near to it, those who were in ambush in the rear of the city came forth from their places and surrounded the sons of Jacob. The sons of Jacob were enclosed between the people of Gaash, and the battle was both to their rear and to their front and rear. And all the men that were on the wall were casting from the wall on them arrows and stones. And Judah, seeing that the men of Gaash were getting too strong for them, gave a most piercing and tremendous shriek. And all the men of Gaash were terrified at the voice of Judah's cry. Men fell from the wall at its powerful shriek, and all those that were from without and within the city were greatly afraid for their lives. And the sons of Jacob still came closer to the break the doors of the city when the men of Gaash threw stones and arrows on them from the top of the wall and made them flee from the gate. The sons of Jacob returned against the men of Gaash who were with them from the outside the city, and they struck them terribly, as striking against gourds, and they could not stand against the sons of Jacob, for fright and terror had seized them at the shriek of Judah. The sons of Jacob killed all those men who were outside the city, and the sons of Jacob still drew nearer to make an entrance into the city and to fight under the city walls. But they could not, for all the inhabitants of Gaash who remained in the city had surrounded the walls of Gaash in every direction. The sons of Jacob were unable to approach the city to fight with them. The sons of Jacob came near to one corner to fight under the wall. The inhabitants of Gaash threw arrows and stones on them like showers of rain, and they fled from under the wall. And the people of Gaash who were on the wall, seeing that the sons of Jacob could not prevail over them from under the wall, reproached the sons of Jacob in these words, saying, what is the matter with you in the battle that you cannot prevail? Can you then do the mighty city of Gaash and its inhabitants as you did to the city of the Amorites that were not so powerful? Certainly to those weak ones among us you did those things and killed them in the entrance of the city, for they had no strength when they were terrified at the sound of your shouting. And will you now then be able to fight in this place? Certainly here you will all die, and we will avenge the cause of those cities that you have laid waste. And the inhabitants of Gaash greatly reproached the sons of Jacob and reviled them with their gods, and continued to cast arrows and stones on them from the wall. Judah and his brothers heard the words of the inhabitants of Gaash, and their anger was greatly roused, and Judah was zealous and on his God in this matter, and he called out and said, O Lord, help and send help to us, our brother and our brothers. And he ran at a distance with all his might, with his drawn sword in his hand, and he sprang from the earth, and by a dint of his strength mounted the wall, and his sword fell from his hand. And Judah shouted on the wall, and all the men that were on the wall were terrified. Some of them fell from the wall into the city and died. And those who were yet on the wall, when they saw Judah's strength, were greatly afraid and fled for their lives into the city for safety. And some were emboldened to fight with Judah on the wall. They came close to kill him when they saw there was no sword in Judah's hand, and they thought of casting him from the wall to his brothers. 20 men of the city came up to assist them. They surrounded Judah and all shouted over him and approached him with drawn swords. They terrified Judah, and Judah cried out to his brothers from the wall. And Jacob and his sons drew the bow from under the wall and struck 3 of the men that were on the top of the wall. And Judah continued to cry. And he explained, O Lord, help us. O Lord, deliver us. And he cried out with a loud voice on the wall, and the cry was heard at a great distance. After this cry, he again repeated a shout, and all the men who surrounded Judah on the top of the wall were terrified. They each drew their sword from his hand at the sound of Judah shouting, and his tremor fled. And Judah took the sword which had fallen from their hands, and he fought with them and killed 20 of their men on the wall. About 80 men and women still ascended the wall from the city, and they all surrounded Judah. And the Lord impressed the fear of Judah in their hearts, so that they were unable to approach him. And Jacob and all who were with him drew the bow from under the wall, and they killed 10 men on the wall. They flew below the wall in front of Jacob and his sons. And the people on the wall, seeing that 20 of their men had fallen, still ran toward Judah with drawn swords, but they could not approach him, for they were greatly terrified of Judah's strength. And one of their mighty men, whose name was Arud, approached to strike Judah on the head with his sword, when Judah hastily put his sword to his head. The sword hit the shield, and it was split in two. This mighty man, after he had struck Judah, ran for his life at the fear of Judah, and his feet slipped on the wall, and he fell among the sons of Jacob, who were below the wall. And the sons of Jacob struck him and killed him. And Judah's head pained him from the blow of the powerful man. Judah had nearly died from it, and Judah cried out on the wall owing to the pain produced by the blow. When Dan heard him, and his anger burned within him, He also rose up and went a distance and ran and sprang from the earth and mounted the wall with his wrath, excited strength. And when Dan came on the wall near to Judah, all the men on the wall fled, who had stood against Judah. They went up to the second wall, and they drew arrows and stones at Dan and Judah from the second wall, and endeavored to drive them from the wall. And the arrows and the stones struck Dan and Judah, and they had nearly been killed on the wall. Wherever Dan and Judah fled from the wall, they were attacked with arrows and stones from the second wall. Jacob and his sons were still at the entrance of the city below the first wall, and they were not able to draw their bow against the inhabitants of the city, as they could not be seen by them on the second wall. Dan and Judah, when they could not longer bear the stones and arrows that fell on them from the second wall, both sprang unto the second wall near the people of the city. When the people of the city who were on the second wall saw that Dan and Judah had come to them on the second wall, they all cried out and descended below between the walls. Jacob and his sons heard the noise of the shouting from the people of the city, and they were still at the entrance of the city. They were anxious about Dan and Judah, who were not seen by them, they being on the second wall. Naphtali went up with his wrath excited might and sprang on the first wall to see what caused the noise of shouting which they had heard in the city. Issachar and Zebulun came near to break the doors of the city, and they opened the gates of the city and came into the city. Naphtali leaped from the first wall to the second and came to assist his brothers, the inhabitants of Gaash, who were on the wall, seeing that Naphtali was the third who had come up to assist his brothers, all fled and descended into the city. And Jacob and all his sons and all their young men came into the city to them. Judah and Dan and Naphtali descended from the wall into the city and pursued the inhabitants of the city. And Simeon and Levi were from outside the city and didn't know that the gate was open. They went up from there to the wall and came down to their brothers into the city. The inhabitants of the city had all descended into the city, and the sons of Jacob came to them from different directions. The battle waged against them from the front and the rear, and the sons of Jacob struck them terribly and killed about 20,000 of them, men, women. Not one of them could stand up against the sons of Jacob. And the blood flowed plentifully in the city, and it was like a brook of water. The blood flowed like a brook of outer part of the city and reached the deserts of Beth Chorin. And the people of Beth Chorin saw at a distance the blood flowing from the city of Gaash, and about 70 men from among them ran to see the blood, and they came to the place where the blood was. They followed the track of the blood and came to the wall of the city of Gaash, and they saw the blood issue from the city. They heard the voices of crying from the inhabitants of Gaash, for it ascended to the heaven, and the blood was continuing to flow abundantly like a brook of water. And all the sons of Jacob were still smiting the inhabitants of Gaash, and were engaged in slaying them till evening, about 20,000 men and women. And the people of Chorin said, certainly this is the work of the Hebrews, for they are still carrying on war in all the cities of the Amorites. And those people hurried and ran to Bethchorin, and each took his weapons of war. They cried out to all the inhabitants of Bethchorin, who also put on their weapons of war to go and fight with the sons of Jacob. When the sons of Jacob had done smiting the inhabitants of Gaash, they walked about the city to strip all the slain, coming into the innermost part of the city and farther, and they met three very powerful men. There was no sword in their hand. The sons of Jacob came up to the place where they were, and the powerful men ran away. One of them had taken Zebulun, who he saw was a young lad and short in stature, and with his might dashed him to the ground. And Jacob ran to him with his sword, and Jacob struck him below his loins with the sword and cut him in two, and the body fell on Zebulun. The second one approached and seized Jacob to fell him, sorry, and seized Jacob to fall him to the ground. I think that's just written wrong. Jacob turned to him and shouted to him, while Simeon and Levi had struck him on the hips with the sword and felled him to the ground. And the powerful man rose up from the ground with wrath excited might. Judah came to him before he had gained his footing and struck him on the head with the sword, and his head was split and he died. The third powerful man, seeing that his companions were killed, ran from before the sons of Jacob, and the sons of Jacob pursued him into the city. While the powerful man was fleeing, he found one of the swords of the inhabitants of the city. He picked it up and turned to the sons of Jacob and fought them with that sword. The powerful man ran to Judah, struck him on the head with the sword, and there was no shield in the hand of Judah. While he was aiming to strike, Naphtali hastily took his shield and put it to Judah's head, and the sword at the powerful man hit the shield of Naphtali, and Judah escaped the sword. Simeon and Levi ran unto the powerful man, and with their swords, and struck at him forcefully with his swords. And the two swords entered the body of the powerful man, and divided it in two lengthwise. And the sons of Jacob struck the three mighty men at that time together with all the inhabitants of Gaash. And the day was about to decline, and the sons of Jacob walked about Gaash and took all the spoils of the city, even the little ones and the women they did not allow to live. And the sons of Jacob did to Gaash as they had done to Sartan and Shiloh. And the sons of Jacob led away all the spoils of Gaash and went out of the city by night. They were going out marching toward the castle of Beth Chorin, and the inhabitants of Beth Chorin were going to the castle to meet them. On that night the sons of Jacob fought with the inhabitants of Bethchorin in the castle of Bethchorin, and all the inhabitants of Bethchorin were mighty men. One of them would not flee from before 10,000 men, and they fought on that night on the castle. Their shouts were heard on that night from afar, and the earth quaked at their shouting. And all the sons of Jacob were afraid of those men, as they were not accustomed to fight in the dark, and they were all greatly perplexed. The sons of Jacob cried to the Lord, saying, Give help to us, O Lord. Deliver us that we may not die by the hands of these uncircumcised men. And the Lord listened to the voice of the sons of Jacob, and the Lord caused great terror and confusion to seize the people of Bethchorin. They fought among themselves with one another in the darkness of night, and struck each other in great numbers. The sons of Jacob, knowing that the Lord had brought a spirit of perverseness among those men, and that they fought each man with his neighbor, went forth from among the bands of the people of Bethchorin, and went as far as the descent of the castle of Bethchorin, and farther. They stayed there securely with their young men on that night. And the people of Bethchorin fought the whole night, one man with his brother, and the other with his neighbor. They cried out in every direction on the castle, and their cry was heard at a distance, and the whole earth shook as their voice, for they were powerful, above the people of the earth. And all the inhabitants of the city of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Hivites, and all the kings of Canaan, and also all those who were on the other side of the Jordan, heard the noise of the shouting that night. They said, "Certainly these are the battles of the Hebrews who are fighting against the 7 cities who came near to them. Who can stand against those Hebrews?" All the inhabitants of the city of Canaanites and all those who were on the other side of the Jordan were greatly afraid of the sons of Jacob, for they said, "Behold, the same will be done to us, was done to those cities, for who can stand against their mighty strength?" And the cries of the Churanites were very great on that night, and continued to increase. They struck each other till morning, and numbers of them were killed. And the morning appeared, all the sons of Jacob rose up at daybreak and went up to the castle, and they struck those who remained of the Charonites in a terrible manner, and they were all killed in the castle. And the 6th day appeared, and all the inhabitants saw at a distance all the people of Bethchorin lying dead in the castle of Bethchorin, and scattered about as the carcasses of lambs and goats. And the sons of Jacob all led all the spoil which they had captured from Gaash, and went to Bethchorin. They found the city full of people like the sand of the sea, and they fought with them. And the sons of Jacob struck them there till evening time. And the sons of Jacob did to Bethchorin as they had done to Gaash and Tapnach, and as they had done to Cheshire, Sartan, and to Shiloh. The sons of Jacob took with them the spoil of Bethchorin and all the spoils of the cities, and on that day they went home to Shechem. And the sons of Jacob came home to the city of Shechem, and they remained outside the city, and then rested there from the war, and stayed there all night. And all their servants took with all their spoils, and they had taken from the cities, were left outside the city, and they did not enter the city, for they said, "Perhaps they may yet be more fighting against us, and they may come to besiege us in Shechem." Jacob and his sons and their servants remained that night, and the next day in the portion of the field which Jacob had purchased from Hamor for 5 shekels. All that they had captured was with them. All the booty which the sons of Jacob had captured was in the portion of the field, immense as the sand on the seashore. The inhabitants of the land observed from afar, and they all were afraid of the sons of Jacob, who had done this thing, for no king from the days of old had ever done the like. The 7 kings of the Canaanites resolved to make peace with the sons of Jacob, for they were greatly afraid for their lives on account of the sons of Jacob. And on that day, being the 7th day, Japhia, king of Hebron, sent secretly to the king of Ai, and the king of Gibeon, and the king of Shalem, and the king of Adullam, and to the king of Lachish, and to the king of Chashar, to all the Canaanite kings who were under their subjection, saying, "Go up with me and come to me, that we may go to the sons of Jacob, and will make peace with them, and form a treaty with them, that all that all your lands may not be destroyed by the swords of the sons of Jacob, as they did to Shechem and the cities around it, as you have heard and seen. And when you come to me, do not come with many men, but let every king bring his 3 head captains, and every captain bring 3 of his officers. And come all of you to Hebron. We will go together to the sons of Jacob, and request them to form a treaty of peace with us. And all those kings did as the king of Hebron had sent to them, for they were all under his counsel and command. And all the kings of Canaan assembled to go to the sons of Jacob, to make peace with them. The sons of Jacob returned and went to the portion of the field that was in Shechem, for they did not put confidence in the kings of the land. And the sons of Jacob returned and remained in the portion of the field 10 days, and no one came to make war with them. When the sons of Jacob saw that there was no appearance of war, they all assembled and went into the city of Shechem. And the sons of Jacob remained in Shechem. And at the expiration of 40 days, all the kings of the Amorites assembled from all their places and came to Hebron, to Shaphiah, king of Hebron. The number of kings that came to Hebron to make peace with the sons of Jacob were 21 kings, and the kings' captains that came with them was 69, and their men were 189. All these kings and their men rested by Mount Hebron. And the king of Hebron went out with these 3 captains and 9 men. And these kings resolved to go to the sons of Jacob to make peace. They said to the king of Hebron, "Go before us with your men. Speak for us to the sons of Jacob, and we will come after you and confirm your words." And the king of Hebron did so. The sons of Jacob heard that all the kings of Canaan had gathered together and rested in Hebron. And the sons of Jacob sent 4 of their servants and spies, saying, "Go and spy these kings, and search and examine their men, whether they are few or many. If they are but few in number, count them all and come back." And the servants of Jacob went secretly to these kings and did as the sons of Jacob and had commanded them. On that day they came back to the sons of Jacob and said to them, "We came to those kings, and they are few in number. We counted all, and surely there were 288 men, kings and men." The sons of Jacob said, "They are but few in number, therefore we will not go out to them." In the morning the sons of Jacob rose up and chose 62 of their men, and 10 of the sons of Jacob went with them. And they put on their weapons of war, for they said, "They are coming to make war with us," for they didn't know that they were coming to make peace with them. And the sons of Jacob went with their servants to the gates of Shechem, toward those kings, and their father Jacob was with them. And when they had come forth, there the king of Hebron, his 3 captains, and 9 men with him, were coming along the road towards the sons of Jacob. The son of Jacob lifted up their eyes and saw at a distance Shaphiah, king of Hebron, with his captains coming towards them. And the sons of Jacob took their stand at the place of the gate of Shechem and did not proceed. The kings of Hebron continued to advance, he and his captains, until he came near to the sons of Jacob. He and his captains bowed down to them to the ground, and the king of Hebron sat with his captains in front of Jacob and his sons. The sons of Jacob said to him, "What has happened to you, O king of Hebron? Why have you come to us this day? What do you require from us?" And the king of Hebron said to Jacob, "I petition you, my lord, all the kings of the Canaanites have this day come to you to make peace with you. And the sons of Jacob heard the words of the king of Hebron. They would not consent to his proposals. The sons of Jacob had no faith in him, for they imagined that the king of Hebron had spoken deceitfully to them. The king of Hebron knew from the words of the sons of Jacob that they did not believe his words. And the king of Hebron approached nearer to Jacob and said to him, I beg you, my lord, be assured that all these kings have come to you on peaceable terms, for they have not come with all their men, neither did they bring their weapons of war with them, for they have come to seek peace from my lord and his sons. The sons of Jacob answered the king of Hebron, saying, Go to all these kings, and if you speak truth to us, let them each come singly before us. If they come to us unarmed, we shall then know that they seek peace from us. And Japhia, king of Hebron, sent one of his men to the kings, and they all came before the sons of Jacob and bowed down. Sorry, I got lost there. To them to the ground. And these kings sat before Jacob and his sons and spoke to them, saying, We have heard all that you did to the kings of the Amorites with your sword and greatly mighty arm. Oh, they're talking about our father's mighty hand, our father's mighty arm. And so no man could stand up before you. We were afraid of you for the sake of our lives, but that it would happen to us as it did to them. So we have come to you from to form a treaty of peace between us, and now therefore contract with us a covenant of peace and truth, that you will not meddle with us inasmuch as we will not meddle with you. And the sons of Jacob knew that they had really come to seek peace from them. And the sons of Jacob listened to them and formed a covenant with them. The sons of Jacob swore to them that they will not meddle with them. And all the kings of Canaanites swore also to the sons of Jacob that they will not meddle with them, and made them pay tribute from that day forward. And after this, all the captains of the kings came with their men before Jacob with presents in their hands for Jacob and his sons, and they bowed down to him to the ground. These kings then urged the sons of Jacob and begged of them to return all the spoil that they had captured from the 7 cities of the Amorites. And the sons of Jacob did so. They returned all that they had captured, the women, the little ones, the cattle, and all the spoils which they had taken. They sent them all. They went away each to his city. And all these kings again bowed down to the sons of Jacob, and they sent or brought them many gifts in those days. The sons of Jacob sent off their kings and their men, and they went peacefully away from them to their cities. And the sons of Jacob also returned to their home in Shechem. And there was peace from that day forward between the sons of Jacob and the kings of the Canaanites, until the children of Israel came to inherit the land of Canaan. So we come to the end of the story, and now I just wanted to point out how important prayer is, because if you see in all their challenges, the first thing that they did was pray to God. But not only that, every time they called onto God, you saw God's supernatural power play into these battles. And so, of course, we understand that the covenant was originally made with Abraham, but the promise was for the sons of Jacob. And so, this is the land of Canaan. And so, what did God do? He built up their reputation, right? For the sons of Israel, because all the kings of Canaan all knew the strength and the mighty power of our glorious Father, because all the glory goes to our Father. As I pointed out in the last chapter, the mighty arm of God was on these battles, and they fought against 7 cities, and it was only a minimal of men, and they were able to conquer. On top of the fact that they conquered giants. So it's just amazing the power and the strength of our mighty God. And so, again, we are coming to very strong tribulations in this time, and the children of God are promised many things. And my whole objective here is to bring out the strength of God's children, that if we build up that relationship with our Father, walking in that path, we're able to request these things. And I think these things will be given to us. In other words, the supernatural power of our glorious Father, his mighty hand, will be seen in these days. So thank you so much. Stay in prayer, get close to your Father, and may God be with you. Bendición.